Hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. Back in October of last year, I spoke with Dave Slater and Ted Hesketh about their days with the band Focal Point. Mid-December, Dave emailed me to see about setting up another meeting to talk about what was missed from the first chat. At first, I thought, had I missed some important questions about a part of the band's history? What did I left out? Then Dave explained how important Paul Tennant was, as Dave put it, the driving force and inspiration behind the band. And we hadn't talked about him. From my vantage point, considering Paul's untimely death, I thought it was perhaps too sensitive a subject to bring up. But I am very happy that Dave and Paul's daughter, Michelle, have both decided to give Paul his due, especially his later years with Focal Point. So this chat will be a dedication to Paul Tennant, his life, and life in music. Joining me today are Dave Slater and Michelle Tennant, Paul's daughter. Michelle is a singer-songwriter, musician in her own right. Well, welcome, guys.
Hi, nice to meet you, Greg.
Hi, Greg. Nice to meet you once again. I'm
You
going
have
to say a really big thank you for, first of all, the first interview. That was really, really good of you to allow Ted and I to speak about the band, the history of the band. And another special thank you for allowing me to have this additional interview for the reasons you've already laid out, speaking about Paul and the major role that he played in Focal Point, because without Paul, there wouldn't have been a Focal Point. And so I'd like to fill in some of the gaps, perhaps, in terms of Paul. If you don't mind, I'll start off really, probably some of it will be a little bit repetitious from last interview, but I think it's good. It's important that I start off from where the very first time I met Paul, because, you know, I've known him now. I've known him since 1967, right through till his passing in 2010. And I say, he and I were like brothers. He certainly, to me, he was the brother I didn't have. And we were, even when we weren't living in the same part of the country, he lived in the States for a while. He spent a lot of his time in the suburbs of London and Southeast. But we were always, every week, we were in touch with each other. We'd either meet up from time to time for recordings. You know, for the songs, we were still writing right the way to the end. And if we weren't meeting up, we'd be speaking to each other on the internet. So very important part of my life. And you know what? He still is. So I wanted to sort of start at the beginning. First impressions, and I think I did mention it last time in the first interview we ran. I was playing in a well-established Liverpool band with Tim Wells. We were on a club we used to play at regularly. And I remember looking at from the stage, we were playing, these two guys walking in, one of them wearing this, you know, that caftan. and I'm thinking, who is that? But they were honed in on us. They were heading for us, you know. And so I was interested even before I'd said hi to him in who he was. And that was Paul. And the other guy was Dave Rhodes. And at that time, Paul and Dave, I think they were in another band together. Maracas, I think they were called. But I didn't know Dave. I didn't know either. Then in the break, they introduced themselves, and it was literally, do you want to join our band? We were going to form a group, and it's going to be called Focal Point, and that's the name Brian Epstein has given us. And I thought, Brian Epstein, I know that name. I'm interested. he could have sold me anything, Paul. He was a good salesman. So it explained exactly what was going on. That they'd written about 6 songs. They demoed them. They spoke to Paul McCartney. They stopped Paul McCartney. I think that story is pretty well known now. It's on the internet that they badgered him and said, "Listen, Paul, give us a break. We need a break." Blah blah blah. And he put them in touch with Terry Doran, and Terry was their music director, publishing director, I think, because at that time Apple didn't have a label. They were a publishing company only. And so their songs went to Brian Epstein, their songs went to John Lennon. And I think between the two of them and Terry Doran, they decided, yes, let's sign them up. And Epstein said, "We'll sign you up, but you need a band. We want you to put you out as a group, and you're going to be called Focal Point. You go and get the band, and that's it." And so that's how it started. But my first impressions, he sold me, well, who wouldn't be sold on it? London, music, music world, Apple, Beatles. But but right from the get-go, he was Paul's drive and enthusiasm was there from the very start.
Mm-hmm.
Dave was the quieter of the two. He's a great guy, Dave, don't get me wrong, but Paul was the man who drove it. He could sell it to you. And you know what? That was in 1967.
Mm-hmm.
Before his passing, he was 2009, 2010. He was still selling me things. He was still saying, "Dave, we're going to do this. Dave, we're going to do," and he was always looking ahead,
mm-hmm.
and he was always enthusiastic.
Mm-hmm.
He brought out the book, "All You Need Is Luck," and before that book came out, this is towards the end, that lasts a few years, I think about 2008, 2009-ish. Before that book came out, he said to me, "Paul McCartney's going to do a spiel on the book for it. He's going to actually write something up on the book." I said, "Oh, get away." Yeah. Pardon the pun, yeah. But, having said that, I'm thinking, well, hang a minute. No, it's not so daft. This is Paul speaking. Anything could happen. And sure enough, the book came out, and there was Paul McCartney written a little bit about Paul Tennant. I'm thinking, and this is the man, so he's inspirational. He can inspire you. And I said to Michelle, I felt like his trusted lieutenant all the way through, there by his side, And so that's the overall impression of Paul. He would always inspire, even days when you think, hang on, it's all behind us now, Paul. But listen, no, we can do this, we can do that. I've got a contact here, but okay, let's try again. Back in the studio, back writing songs again. So he kept it going. He was the driving force. And that was the impression I got from 67 right the way through to his passing in 2010. It was still the same. I still got the same buzz. When I was speaking to Paul, there was always something positive going on. It didn't always materialize, but it often did. So I guess if it was mentioned, maybe we've covered the period when we were at Apple, I think, in pretty much depth, haven't we?
I think so. Let me ask you real quick. What did Paul ever tell you what he saw in you? Why he wanted you to be part of his band?
No, I don't know. Well, no, I think it's a good question. I've never really thought about that. It was myself and Tim. They were looking for a bass player and a keyboard player, and I'm guessing that they've been told, go and see these two. We were in a band that was quite popular in Liverpool at the time called The Top, and we were out all the time. We had more bookings than we could cope with, and so we were doing Motown-ish stuff, 1960 Tamla Motown, and it was nothing original. Literally a covers band. Okay. But they must have heard about us from somewhere. I don't remember asking him that one. So he specifically came to see us, watch us, and then approach us. It was as simple as that. But I never asked who actually put you in our direction. But no, never asked that.
He always told me you were a great bass player, and I think seeing you on stage, maybe that was the tick, wasn't it? because when someone's good on stage, you know when you know.
There's plenty of bass players around, but I don't. Yeah,
Yeah, but it's not
I mean-
always the bass player, is it? It's some, you've just got that spark, haven't you, on stage? Some people just have that spark, and
she's very kind.
no.
But it was typical. So the keyboard player as well. So they needed keyboards. They already had the drummer, Ted. They already knew who the drummer was going to be. Because I think Ted was with them in the Maracas, but they wanted a bass and they wanted keyboards. And I think, yeah, they'd heard about us, came to see the band. You know, maybe we were being auditioned when we were on stage. I don't know. But, you know, it was in the break, they approached us, and I say the rest of it was really history.
Right. Well, you just trusted in his judgment. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think also through the years, and I know loyalty's been a big thing with Paul as well. And I know that through a good friend of his once Paul passed, and then this friend contacted me and said, look, you know, he's never known anybody to be as loyal as you are. Because I was always there for him, you know, not always there physically, couldn't be, but, you know, if he wanted to talk, you know, if he wants to open up about things, which he didn't do very often, but if he did, you know, he'd always contact me and have a chat with me about that. So we were always supporting each other.
Good.
But so when we finished, so when the band sort of the Apple period finished, we all headed back up to Liverpool. We then started to play as a live band. And this was the first time that we'd actually been, as a group, Focal Point, playing live.
Mm-hmm.
Ted was with us for a while, but then he left and did other things, as was mentioned in the last interview. And Dave Rhodes left as well and moved out of the area. He went up to the northeast and moved out there. And so it left myself, Paul, and Tim, the keyboard player. And we then recruited a drummer. And I can't remember who else we recruited, but we continued as a band for a while. But it came to a point where we were not making any progress musically even. We were just, the clubs in Liverpool then, and this, you know, in the Northwest region, they didn't really want to know about any originality. They just wanted to hear Motown, disco music. And at the time also, discos were starting to become more prevalent in the clubs. Mm-hmm. And so our days were numbered really in terms of that. So we decided at some point, it's time to sort of quit. And that's what we did. Quit in the terms of playing live. And bear in mind, I've done it since 1966, and all the clubs we were playing at in the 1970s, the clubs I played at since the mid-60s, and there was no real interest for me anymore. I was getting a bit, you know, it was just routine. It was go through motions.
Right.
Let's put it that way. But we continued writing songs, and that became our main, if you like, focal point, if you pardon the pun. That's what kept us going, really, in terms of musical interest. And at some point, but we were, as friends, he was still living in Liverpool at the time, and we were getting together. We were together all the time, you know. We'd go out together, wives at the weekend, and all the rest of it. And at one point, Paul was a printer by trade. He was in the printing business, and he got an offer to go and work on the QE2 in the printing. And so I said, yeah. So I took him down to the station, and he got a train down to Southampton, where he went on board the QE2. And then he spent, I don't know how long it was.
8 years.
Was it 8 years? Okay, long time. He worked on the QE2, basically as a printer. So he would, he had a team under him. He was supervisor. And, you know, at night time, you know, overnight, they'd be printing the QE2 news for the next morning. So, you know, the passengers would get their QE2 news the next day. But very quickly, he joined the resident band on the QE2. And And he said, I mean, he was obviously in touch with me very regularly, sending me cards back from, New York to Southampton, New York. He was constantly going between Southampton and New York. And he said, oh yeah, there's Roger Dean's the lead guitarist with the group. I think we're on the band. And I'm thinking, I know Roger Dean. I know of him. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He's John Mayall's. Eric Clapton replaced Roger Dean in John Mayall's Blues Breakers.
Blues Breakers, yeah.
And the very first album, which I had, John Mayall, was live at the Klux Klee Club in London. And now Roger was now playing residence in the band on the QE2. So Paul already was getting to know a few people worth knowing. And he stayed friends with Roger for the rest of Roger's life. Roger sadly passed away a few years ago. So we were keeping in touch then. That was Paul, as Paul was on the QE2. Then he got back to the UK for a short while. And then he moved over to the States.
Virginia.
Into Virginia. And so we lived in Virginia for a while.
About 3 years. I think it
Was it that long, was it?
3 years.
Yeah. Again, we were kept in touch. And one of the things we were talking about, I was always interested in the American Civil War. And I was talking about that to Paul. And he said, well, why don't we do something with that? Let's write some material for it. And we came up with the song Gettysburg. It's on YouTube, actually. It is on YouTube. Okay. And we thought, well, yeah, that's okay, nice. Let's now do an album full of the Civil War. The theme will be the Civil War. Well, we never got that far. The one song was all we got to, Great ideas, but that's as far as we got. But anyway, so that materialized from that time. He was in America, working in America. And then he came back over here. And then he moved down to a place called Potter's Bar.
In Little Heath, yeah, just in Hertfordshire, which is just outside London, North London.
Well, let me ask you, Michelle. How old were you when he moved to Virginia? I
was probably about 22, 23. Oh, okay. I just finished university, so I'd gone down and lived with him for a little while because I went to university where he lived, and I remember him going. I was a bit gutted, but missed him a lot. But it was a good decision, and it was a great opportunity for him, and so yeah, it was quite sad. I never got to see him actually. I never actually went out. So every time we try and make arrangements, something happened, and when you first starting work, and it kind of never came about. But yeah, it was a long 3 years when I didn't see him. We stayed in contact a lot, obviously, but
right. So there was no trying to keep him there from your mom and your yourself.
Well, my parents separated when I was about 13. So he'd remarried and he had Jack, my half brother. So they'd gone over there together, Jack and Penny, his wife at the time. So and because I was an adult, and it's a bit different. If it had been a kid, I'd probably been a bit. But yeah, so it was. He loved it over there, didn't he?
Yeah,
really enjoyed it.
He did. Yeah, I don't know why he came back. Actually, contract ended.
Yeah, I think it was the contract. Yeah, he was working for Delaware, wasn't he? So
okay.
Yeah, I think it was a lot. I think he'd gone over there because they'd opened up, a company over there, or I don't know.
Currency, did you think?
I think it was something to do with. Yeah, I think it was travelers' checks and passports and all stuff like that.
A lot of security around what he was doing,
Okay.
But, yeah, it was just a great opportunity, and I think he would have been silly not to take it. So, but I did miss him, and we did stay in touch.
Yeah.
All right. We'll continue. Sorry.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. So he's back. He's back in the UK. He's living in Potter's Bar. And at that point, we started to get really seriously writing songs again. We'd written a few during the Focal Point London period, Apple period. And I had a few things before then. I'd been writing before then, I'd been writing for a few years. And so we got together, and basically how it worked was he'd send an idea to me, I'd send an idea to him. we'd work on it independently, or what often would happen, and I'd say, Paul, I've got this song, or I've got much of this song, you know, I'd like us to work on it. And he'd always say, come over here, come down here. And let's, because he had a nice studio of his own. He always had some, you know, he had a really nice studio in his own house. And so I'd head down to his, and then about 200 or 300 miles, I think. I don't know where it was, but it was always we'd have a long weekend, and then we'd work on the song. And vice versa. If he had something he wanted to record, we'd work on that together as well. And so we did that, and much of the material we did, we recorded in professional studios as well, because Paul had always kept in touch with Wayne Bickerton. If you recall, Greg, Wayne was at this time, he was a very well-known, successful producer. He'd created the Rubettes, a band called the Rubettes. He had a song, and the song was Sugar Baby Love.
Right.
And it was a massive hit over here. I don't know about in the States, I'm not sure.
It was pretty big here. Yeah, it was bigger there, but it made, you know, it was big here too. So.
Yeah. Okay. So Paul has stayed in touch with Wayne. So Wayne said, and Wayne had his own publishing companies then, State Music and Odyssey Music, I think they were called. And so Paul and I signed up to Wayne Bickerton for our songs. I think I mentioned this last time. The deal was that Wayne would give us studio time. So he would pay for the studio time. We'd go in, record the numbers, and he'd then decide whether he wanted to put them onto his publishing house or not. So we did that for a few years. And recording studios in Manchester, and also in London. We used the London studio on one occasion. And that went on for a few years. So we've got all this material now starting to build up. Some of it came out on that second album that was put out called Liverpool, You're in My Soul. A lot of it wasn't, including one song called In My Life, which is, I'll probably speak about a bit more later on, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
So we were doing that, and that for us, that was fine. That's, you know, because we had day jobs as well. We were working, you know, we had families, etc., etc. But it was a hobby, so it became a hobby for us. But it was, you know, we loved it, and it kept our hand in the songwriting world, as it were. I guess now I'd probably say, bring it up to the end of the 90s, 2000s. It became a bit more serious then, in the sense that I mentioned last time that this one song, Sycamore Sid, was being played in this London venue every year, and you know they have the psychedelic, psychic songs, and and they get together, and that was always played there. And the record company wanted to license it and put it out, and it ended up on quite a few of these compilation albums. And so we thought then, well, okay, there's still an interest here. Let's see if we can, well, this is Paul speaking now. Let's see where we can go. We're on the starters blocks again. Here we go again. It's 1967 all over again. So I'm getting all fired up over this. This is 40 years later, 30 years later. So we, at this point, there were just the two of us really, the band-wise. Tim would occasionally join us, but it was just Paul and myself really. And then, so we got a band then. We put it, let me think how it worked. I'm not quite sure what came first, but we had the songs. The company put out the songs, a few of ours. The songs we recorded for Decca went on various albums, various compilation albums. And then the company, I think it was Cherry Red Records, I'm not sure, said, we'd like to do a full album of your material. And demos and all of it. And so we had, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We've got nothing to lose, you know, and everything to gain from it, as it were. So that went out in 2005. And it was pretty well received. And then we thought, let's start playing again. should we think about a band again? Because that's it. We were getting, there's a guy in America who was, we had conventions here in Liverpool, Beatles conventions, and they wanted us to play at the conventions, focal point to play. And there was another, and one of the conventions was this called, I've got the t-shirt from it, I'll just get it for you. I've got the t-shirt. International Pop Overthrow. Excuse me.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And it was an American guy who, can you see it there, Greg?
Yes. There we
Just
go.
about.
Hold it right. Yeah, that's good. At the
Yeah,
Cavern
and the
Club.
promoter was an American guy. And he contacted me and he said, listen, I want your band to play. He had, I don't know where he got my email from, at the festivals. And we were just starting to play again. We had a band, and we said, great, we'll do it. And what he would do is, it was an annual event, and we played out in for a few years, and it would be literally 3 or 4 venues in close proximity to the Cavern, and it would include the Cavern. And so the host of bands would do the rounds, and we played Friday through Sunday, the different venues, and the venues are.
Oh my goodness.
And here's the list of the bands. And this is one. This year was 2000. Sorry, Michelle, you're okay there. I'm lost in your alcohol.
That's a lot of bands, right? Yeah, that's.
Can you spell that? Yeah. I don't really even make it. It's not clear, but we're on there, and there's lots of bands there, but they're not.
Yeah.
I don't really. I'll send you one of these. I've got a couple of these.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure. Yeah, that would be great. I don't recognize most of those that I see there. I haven't heard of those bands, but
okay. Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't recognize most of them either. but the point I'm making is they're not just Liverpool bands. There's bands from, Japanese bands would turn up, Italian bands would turn up.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was quite
right. It's similar to our South by Southwest here in Austin. You've heard of that, right? The South by Southwest Festival. Yeah, we get bands from everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an annual thing. Yeah.
But the venues we would play, so we get to see some of these other bands as well, and it's a mighty big list. So I mean, he was really good at organising all this. The guy, and I can't remember his name now, but the venues we played at, basically, the Cavern. I don't even see it. I'll read it through. The Cavern, of course, the Cavern Pub, the Beaconsfield, and the Grapes. They're all pubs, public houses. Yeah, bars. And the key one for me was the Grapes. The Grapes is the pub just across the street in Matthew Street.
Okay.
From more or less not quite opposite the Cavern itself. Don't know if you can see.
Hold it up a little higher. Hold it up a little. Yeah, and then move it over. Yeah, that way, that direction. It's hard to tell because I have to do everything backwards here. So if I want to go left, right, and then pull it up, raise it. Yeah, a little bit higher. Yeah, there we go. Beaconsfield and the Grapes.
Yes.
There we go. Got it.
The big thing with the Grapes was it's the famous photograph of the Beatles sitting in the Grapes, because they would, in the breaks, in the Cavern sessions, they would go to the Grapes and chill out.
Right.
So it's still there now on the table where they all sat. So we got ourselves a photograph sat exactly where the Beatles sat, and when I'm sure many other bands did the same thing, but it was interesting. So it was a lovely weekend. It was a great weekend. And that sharpened us up again as a musical outfit. And I always remember because at one point, it used to get very, very busy. You can imagine the Cavern itself. It wasn't the original Cavern. We played the original Cavern, but they closed it down because of health and safety issues. It was condemned in that sense. But they reopened a few doors away. And that was the Cavern that we were later on playing at. And this is the one we're talking about now. And I remember we were going on there. We already played the Grapes, I think, or one of the other pubs. And we were going on about late at night. And getting through the door was difficult. There was no backstage way in. We just literally had to plow down the steps, through the crowd,
Really?
and the sweat was. I remember the sweat was coming off the walls. It was just really, really oppressive. And I remember the keyboard player said, "I'm out of here. I can't do this." Just turned and walked away. And I'm then on stage. We're getting set up, and I'm thinking, "Oh my God." I never see the positive side of things, you see, Greg. I always see the negative side. The glass is always half empty and nothing fizzy in it. In
You
my
know, I'm like that too. I'm
oh,
like
God, I sympathize. But the point I'm coming to, probably emphasizing, is I'm on stage there looking, I must be looking really dejected, I don't know. But Paul came up to me, and this is before we started, and it's wall-to-wall bodies in there, you know, people. And he said, "Don't worry, we'll be fine, we'll get through it." Puts his arm around me and gives me a hug. That's not typical of his character. He didn't really show his feelings that much, your dad, did he?
He wasn't a great affectionate dad, you know, in that sense. Yeah, he wasn't a hugger, was he?
So he wasn't, but he did on this. He must have seen how desperate I was. He probably thought I was going to turn the walk out.
Right.
Bit of a problem, no base. But and actually, you know, that did really pick me up, and the band, we got through it. We got through it fine. So there's that side of Paul as well. You know, he was there for you, sensitive in his own way. So we did that festival a few times, and we're in the 2000s, and I remember one day he gets in touch with me again. He says, "Look, I've met this guy, Peter Foldy, and a couple of other people. And Peter's he's lives and works in California. He produces movies, and I know he had a big hit in Canada in the 70s. He had a #1 hit in Canada in the 70s songs, and he's a songwriter. And he's written this song, and he sent it to me, and I don't think he wanted us to record it, but he said he told us we can record it. And a song called Reach for the Stars. So, and he wants to put it into a mini movie of his called Head, Hands and Balls, I think it's called. About young adolescents, you know, growing up and you know what. And anyway, so we recorded it in Liverpool and sent it off to Peter, and he put in the film. So that got us a contact with Peter, and he's still I'd call him a friend today, and I still speak very regular contact with him. And he'd send a few more songs, and then we'd record them as well. So there's that connection. And I guess now, I suppose, bringing it right the way up to the present, and it's still a Peter Foley connection here. Let me think if I missed anything out I wanted to talk about. Yeah, okay, so in 2010, we were still optimistic, you know, we were still writing, we were hoping things would, we'd hit it with a song somewhere on the way, we get the big break. We're still looking for the big break in our 60s, you know what I mean? Anyway, and so I came up with this, I wrote this song, Precious Love, and or much of it anyway. And I had it like a George Harrison, My Sweet Lord beat, tempo. And I contacted Paul, so listen, let's put this one down, see what we can do with this. And so, yeah, absolutely. Well, so I went down to his place. He was living in Andover then. And we looked at it, we tried it, we worked on it, and it just wasn't working. I mean, I couldn't sing it, and he was struggling with it. But we did some of the recording, and we left it at that. So we'll come back to it. And then we got back to Liverpool. And unfortunately, before we could get back to it, Paul passed. And so, and with all that, you know, I was devastated, absolutely devastated when I heard the news. I'd been with him the week before, Stayed with him literally the week before. And so I spoke to Michelle. We were in touch, and I said, Michelle, this is what happened with the song. I mentioned the song. So I went up to Michelle's. I remember taking, and I cannot sing to save my life, but how she could understand what I was doing. I put it on. I took my guitar up there and I played it to her. And at her place, she recorded it on your phone, I think, with Michelle, didn't you? And I thought, she's never going to make sense of any of this. Well, wow, did she make sense of it? She'll tell you what happened probably after that. But basically, she changed the whole song, the tempo, the feel of the song. She introduced a cello and a violin into it. And I thought, I've been a fan of chamber music for years, and I've always wanted to use a cello and a violin.
I love cello. I love the cello.
Yeah, on the unbeatable, play in the right hands. And so she had the contact. She knew the musicians. She wrote the score. She'll tell you about that. More about that.
It's not much to tell, really. Or I just the basic. I was a music teacher for quite a few years, and I was always interested in writing, and I've always done a little bit. And when Dave brought a song, I just thought, wouldn't it be nice to have, some strings? And so I had a few friends from when I was a teacher, and just asked them, do you fancy doing this? So just wrote a really simple kind of part for them to do. I still, just improvise and around it. So no, it's a lovely song. It's really good, and it just felt good as well. With you and Dad working on it, and I just thought it would be nice to a little tribute to my dad and to sing it and record it.
Yeah. So Michelle got herself fully 100% involved in it. Reshaped the song, got the musicians in, rearranged it, and we recorded it with the new musicians. And it really wasn't the focal point band, but there were musicians I'd worked with in the past, and it worked out well. It was really, really worked out well. And it was just a shame that Paul wasn't there for it, and it was half finished. Anyway, the song was finished. So I sent it off to Wayne Bickerson, and Wayne liked it. And he said, yep, but can you just change this and change that? And it wasn't no big changes, but just instead of two verses and a chorus, chorus, he wanted verse, chorus. That was as simple as that. And that's easy done. But before I could do that, Wayne Bickerson died, passed away. And again, absolutely devastated. I don't know whether the song's jinxed. It's easy to think it is, but bottom line was, it was just a sad time, really.
Right.
And but we then said, we had a guy who was taking photographs over the months before, photographs of ourselves recording, photographs of ourselves, the band, in the studio on the day we were recording the song. Well, went over a few days in there with the mixing and all that. And we decided, can we put this out? And he actually compiled it and put the photographs, the stills to the song, and put it out on YouTube. And we're very proud of it, I think. And then it's dedicated to Paul. He was part of that song. He never saw it through to the end. But this is Dusty, by the way.
It's a cameo. It's a cameo appearance.
Say hi to Greg. We didn't introduce Dusty before.
Yeah,
apologies for that, Greg.
That's all right.
We're sitting over there before. She was sit over there, and then as soon as I recorded, she just jumped over here. So.
Wants to be in the picture now. You should get bored with it or something. But anyway, so it was a suitable song to dedicate to Paul, and that you think would be the end. For me, I thought, well, and my inspiration wasn't there anymore. Paul had gone, and he was always the go-getter, as I've said before. He was always the one that was, he'd dream, and often the dreams would become reality. But he'd gone. And but then that was in 2011 when we recorded it. Paul had passed in 2010. And then the end of last year, I got a call from Peter Foldy again, and interested in a song that we'd recorded way back in I think in the 2000s, In My Life, and very much Paul. And they're interested in putting that into a film. So that is a project under review, I think, at the moment. So we're hoping that the legacy, Paul's legacy, will live on and continue to live on. Even though Paul doesn't.
Right.
He's still there in spirit, I'm sure.
Right. Spirit, you said his spirit does live
Yeah.
on, and through the music. Well, Michelle, did you want to talk about your earliest memories of your dad and growing up with your dad? Do you want to talk about?
Yeah. From probably my earliest memory is just him playing the guitar. Just he always had a guitar in his hand. Always music on. Massive influence for me musically. The Eagles, America, Cream, Eric Clapton, Poco. Some great bands, and the Beatles, obviously, which I was named after Michelle. My mum was called Nicola, and I was Nicola for about 3 days, and my dad convinced her, no, it's got to be Michelle, it's got to be Michelle, it's got to be the Beatles song, and they changed it round, so I'm Michelle Nicola now. So yeah, massive influence, and just, I mean, I've got an older brother as well, and he plays bass. He's a really good musician, and Jack, my younger brother, he's a drummer and he DJs. So all of us are really interested in music. I like writing, not so much being in performing, but I write some library music and things like that. So it's just a massive influence, and the music I like today is very similar to what my dad used to play. And he was just so cool. He was also cool, and he just seemed to know everything. He's just one of those people, and he was so always enthused. He had such enthusiasm for everything, and it's it's very inspirational. If you wanted to do something, he just I'm not sure, Dad. No, you've got to go for it. I'll help you. And he was always positive. Always after that, bit of fame, I think. Always, but he was really inspirational, and when obviously when my parents split up, it was really sad because he moved down to London then. I didn't see him as much, and obviously when he worked on the ship as well. But we would write to each other. The olden days when we didn't have mobile phones, we actually wrote letters, and I've still got them. He always called me my flower. That was his kind of thing, little flower, he'd say. I was kind of like, because I had an older brother and I was a bit of a daddy's girl, so I was kind of like, so happy to get these letters, these letters off him. It would be so, and Dad coming home soon. And
it's sad. It's sad. I just wanted to interject a little. It's sad that we've lost that art of writing letters. I've kept them all as well. My mum kept them, and he was a good artist as well. I've got a picture that I kept. My mum said, he was always painting. And when he died, I said, remember that picture that my dad drew? And it's massive. It's like this, and it's like all these houses in I think it's in Anfield. You can see the Liverpool. He was a big Liverpool football fan as well.
Yeah.
You can see the stadium in the background. It's really colourful. It's a lovely picture. And I remember when he died, I said, remember that picture? My mum was like, it's in the shed. So I was like, oh my God. So I've got it now in my house, and
Oh,
and
okay.
it's everyone who says, oh wow, look at that picture. And I was like, oh, my dad painted that. You know, he was always painting, or photography. He loved photography. That was his kind of hobby. And yeah, always had something on the go,
Artistic,
didn't
wasn't it?
he? It was
Yeah.
always like some idea, and
He was
you
a
know, he
true
was always
true artist.
But
Yeah.
if I can come in on Michelle, there, what she said about he played at Anfield. You know, Anfield was the football. It includes the football ground of Liverpool Football Club, and he always he always never forgot his roots. He always had this thing about Liverpool, you know, and he wherever he was in the world. I remember when I used to go down to see him, and we were going to do recordings over the weekend. If it was a Saturday afternoon, we always had to stop so we could listen to the radio. And if Liverpool were playing, we had to listen to Liverpool every time, because he was. So that just reminded me of his artwork of the Liverpool football ground.
I remember this was obviously years ago before I was born. There was a picture in the Echo of the Kop. There's a very famous kind of in the Liverpool Football Club stadium. There's a famous part. I don't know if it's which end it is, but there's where everyone stands, and they call it the Kop. And there's a picture of, obviously Liverpool had just scored, and right in the middle on this picture in the Echo is my dad, just like that, you know. he said, I've got to get that picture. So he contacted the Echo and said, you know, can I get a copy of that photograph? And they did send him a copy of it. Yeah.
Right.
And it's a great picture. He's just surrounded by people, but he's right in the middle with both his hands up, just screaming at this goal. And yeah, he was about football.
He was passionate. That's the one thing we never discussed. I'm not. We never argued about it. I do remember, back, Michelle's reminded me now. At some point, he said, "Listen, you've got to go to a football match with us. We've got to go and watch Liverpool." So
to drag me as well.
So yeah, and he dragged me there really, and I thought, okay, I'll go. And another friend of his, guy called Peter Carr, I think his name was, also a fanatical Liverpool supporter then, and I was between the two of them. And I can't get excited about this at all. These two next to me are really, really getting into this. And I think a goal was scored. They without discussing it, they just picked me up and started waving me. You know, as if it was a rattle they were waving, you know. To think, no, I'm still not excited about this. But
Still not.
yeah, his dad was really
music and football. That was his passion.
Yeah. But he didn't overdo the football with me. He knew it wasn't something I was bothered about, so he didn't overdo it. You know, he didn't try and sell it to me too often. After that time, I went with it. He's a lost cause. If you can't get excited about when they scored a goal, he's a lost cause.
Right.
But yeah. So that basically brings it up to date, Greg, in terms of Paul, focal point, and where we're up to now.
Yeah. Well, we can. I wanted to ask you, it might, like I said, get a little too personal if you don't want to talk about it, and we can cut this part out if you don't want to. But were there any signs, indications? You know, you were in touch with him, Dave, and you said a week before, right?
Yeah.
You had spoken to him. Were there any indications? Did he talk to you, or either one of you at all?
I was obviously aware of things going on in my dad's personal life. He'd opened up to me. My dad he wasn't the type of person to talk about his problems. He was very closed in that. And I don't know if it's because he didn't want to trouble me because I was his daughter, and I don't know. But I remember the conversation I had with him on Saturday before he died. He died, well, we found out on Tuesday, and I spoke to him on Saturday, and he seemed really happy because he said, "Oh, I'm playing again, and you know, everything's really, I feel really positive." And we had a kind of long conversation, and I said, "Oh, my dad seems really, really well." And And that was the last I spoke to him. Yeah, I know you went down to
Yeah,
see him. I
I-
wanted him to come back to Liverpool.
Yeah, the week before
Yeah.
Michelle's talking about, and the week before he contacted me and told me some issues that were, and he was moving into a flat above a shop, and I said, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna come down. I'm gonna help you move, be with you, and over this period of time." But as Michelle said, he wasn't one to express any emotions very often. But I sensed things weren't right. Obviously, it's easy to sense things weren't right. And so I moved, I went down there and spent a long weekend with him. And we moved some things into his flat. Spent some time with another friend in the area, down in Andover. And all things, and I like Michelle, I said, why don't you come back to Liverpool? Spend some time living, well, being on your own here, but he said, no, things are fine. He was upbeat, as Michelle said. It was hard to pick up from Paul just how maybe troubled he was. And I couldn't convince him to come back here. So I left it at that, and I came back. I traveled back on the Sunday evening. And the next day, Monday or Tuesday, I contacted him and said, "Yeah, how are you doing? Are things going with you there now? Have you got everything else sorted out? Because we'd only got part of the stuff into the flat that he needed, the furniture, literally he needed furniture and all that." And he seemed quite upbeat about it. Not his normal self, not his normal.
Yeah.
But he wasn't. I didn't sense that what happened, but anyway,
Let me ask. There wasn't anything physically wrong going on, was there? Was he physically?
No.
Ailments, no. Okay.
No, it was just personal kind of like issues with it. Obviously, the breakdown of his marriage to my stepmom, and I think it was. I think that's probably the hardest thing, and he was struggling, but like I said, when I spoke to him before he died, it was like the most upbeat he'd been for a long time. But they say that about they say that, don't they? It's like your decisions made, isn't it? People kind of they kind of, I don't know. You can read into whatever, but he did seem quite upbeat. But
yeah, and on the Sunday before.
Didn't you say he sent you a joke? I got that as well.
Yeah, he sent me. He sent me a joke on text messaging, and I'm thinking, oh, he's in good mood. He's in good shape. That's good to see. It's a positive sign.
Yeah.
Well, and then 2 days later, was it a day? 2 days later.
Yeah, he'd not been in contact with anyone on the Monday. And he had a meeting with someone from Channel 4. I think it was, which is a TV, UK TV channel. I don't know what it was about.
No, I don't know.
And he'd not turned up, and it wasn't like my dad's. He was. It's another thing, he hated being late for anything.
He was always on time.
He not meeting, and a friend of his were really concerned and contacted. I think they contacted his wife or something. Then
they did.
And then there was no answer, and then that's
the police
was found the Tuesday afternoon. I think it was.
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
It was on the 2nd of Feb. So we just had his anniversary this week. 13 years.
13 years. Blown over.
Yeah. Did you say February 2nd?
Yeah.
February 2nd. That's eerie. The tribute that I sent you, Dave, the New Yorker, Alzo.
Yeah.
He passed away on February 1st, but that was 2004. But it's strange. It was a day apart. Yeah.
Yes.
I think my dad did die on the 1st, but he wasn't found till the 2nd.
Yeah.
Okay. That could be the same day.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah. It was the day after, I think. But yeah, he was okay. He clearly, when I was with him, because I was watching him like a hawk. I thought, you know, this is it's a big time in his life. It's a very, and he needs support now more than ever. He'd never admit to that, but
He was quite stubborn, wasn't he?
yeah. I mean,
In that
yeah,
respect.
Michelle Dad, he could be stubborn.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of his traits, and impatient.
Oh yeah.
He didn't suffer fools gladly. If you, you know, and I mean, I'm not as fast as him at doing things. I mean, I said, yeah, okay, we'll do that, Paul. We'll do it now.
Yeah.
No, we won't do it now. I can all cut things off very easily, but he was, and he was like that with everybody who knew him and worked with him. He was very impatient.
Yeah.
But he was it was a bad time, and in the last week. But there's only so much we could do, and I always think back and think, what else could I have done? Perhaps I do think if we're going back to Liverpool, he may be with us now, but it's speculation. I don't know. But there's no way, as Michelle said, he was a stubborn man, and there's no way if he had his mindset on something, doing or not doing something, you couldn't change that mindset. And
he was coming up to Liverpool a lot, though, wasn't he? He was coming
coming
up
up a
kind of
lot,
every like 4
Yeah.
or 5 weeks.
Yeah, he was. Well, yeah, we were actually, we were doing rehearsals and things as well.
A lot.
Come and rehearse with the band.
Because he'd stay at mine.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, we were still playing. The band was playing. Although Paul was still based down south, and focal point. I mean, I've got another focal point together. Really, it was, and some of the musicians are on YouTube. Some of the songs are on there. It was a really, really tight band, and we were playing regularly. That's it. That's come back to me now. And we were going to do an open air festival with Status Quo. We were going to back Status Quo.
He was so excited.
Big festival.
Oh, I've got a gig.
Yeah, and so we had to be really spot on for that, and we were contracted to do that. And so Paul would come up to Liverpool because we were all based here. The band was all based here, and we had our rehearsal studios here. And he would come up very, very regularly to sit in with the band because he was obviously going to be centre stage when we actually played the festival. It never transpired in the end. I think the promoters ran out of money, if I'm being honest. But that's what he did, was up here a lot during that period of time. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to end it on a downbeat.
No.
Do you anything else that you guys would like to talk about his life, and any other memories that you had that were inspirational, or any other anecdotes that you can think of?
What was it?
I mean, I think I've already said that. Whenever he was just a positive. You know, if you had something you want, he was always always encouraging you to do what you go with your dreams, and I think he was always looking for that kind of dream, wasn't he? He was
always upbeat.
Yeah,
always upbeat. And that's what I remember him for, and the fondness I have for
just
him. Obviously,
passion for music. Was
he'd raise your spirits always.
Yeah.
He did,
always
positive outlook.
Can
do. We can do. We'll do this. We'll do that. Not it. Maybe we could. Maybe we can't. I don't know. It was always yes. This is what we're going to do. And often it's like it worked out. It was amazing, and that's what I remember the most about him.
Yeah, I always remember as well. Always going to concerts with him and gigs, and and it was great. It was such. I love live music, and to this day, love live music. And even classical stuff as well. It'd just be a broad, just love going to see live music, and I think that's because of my dad.
She rubbed off hard.
Both my daughters are musicians now. So my eldest has played the violin since she was 4. She's 21 now, and my youngest plays the piano. Loves classical music. And he would have loved that. He would have loved that with me.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's been made up.
He'd have had them in his band.
He'd have a pause and play some violin on this bit. very proud of the girls, and I feel sad that, I mean, my eldest remembers him. My youngest, she was only 2.
What's that?
Yeah, when he died, and I've obviously shown her videos of him and things, but it's quite sad that she doesn't really have any memories, and that's
Yeah.
what's sad. But I talk about them a lot, and I make sure they've obviously got the picture in the room, and I say, "Oh, Granddad painted that, and this is your Granddad's band," and they're like, "Wow."
Yeah, I have,
Is the focal points, where are those bricks in Matthew Street? There's a load of bricks. I'm sure you've already spoke about it, but focal points in the famous bricks of all the bands and the people, and they just think it's really cool. And
yeah.
oh, he's there.
Ted
And
had sent me that photograph of that. Yeah, yeah.
it's great, you can talk about someone, and such an inspiration, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't perfect, no one is, but
Right.
yeah, he was definitely inspirational.
I'll tell you the memories I have of him.
But you've got some stories, Dave.
I don't think that's a story I want to actually evolve now.
Living the life as young men. Oh.
Thank you, Michelle.
what Michelle, what you said, he touched so many lives too. I mean, not just through the music, but being an inspiration and a motivating factor like that.
Yeah.
Everybody needs somebody like that in their life.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, very positive,
Definitely. Yeah.
Which I wish I was like that. I'm a little bit glass half empty.
Yeah.
Me too.
I'm trying.
But this is a very,
like I said,
very empty glass, this one, Very empty glass.
Like I said, myself included. I was more like that too. But yeah.
But bottom line is, Greg, that in my life, hopefully something will come of it. And I'm digging into I've got lots of recordings of ours that he and I have done together, and still not seen the light of day in any way, shape, or form. And I'm thinking, I've still got time here. I might as well try and put something together and get them out on YouTube at least.
Right.
So I'm going to look to do that, because there's so much stuff out there that we haven't really. We just record, put it to one side, and we move on to the next one. So I think I'll try and get some of that out into the wider musical domain, as it were. Like such as YouTube.
Yeah, do that. I mean, do you have a YouTube channel right now?
No, I don't.
Okay.
No.
It's real easy to set up.
Is it?
Yeah, if you need help, I can help you.
Oh yeah, good. It's the visuals to link up with it as well. I want to do something like that. Make it so meaningful, because one of the songs that we did, Liverpool, You're in My Soul, Paul put together a film to run with that on YouTube, and it was really, I thought it turned out quite well. Good, you got a good feel for Liverpool, and in conjunction with the song as well. So that's what I would like to do. But if it was Paul, if Paul was here now, he'd say, "Get it done."
Yeah.
No, I'd like to do. So I've got to keep thinking. He's here.
Maybe I should have inspiration.
You should
Come on,
absolutely.
Dave.
Yeah.
I'm too much. I sit on the fence too much about making decisions.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking at both sides. Every side, every angle.
Yeah.
I analyze way too much. So So even starting this interview channel, I was like, okay, what do I call it? I don't want it to be too this or too that. I don't want it to be like too commercial. I don't want it to I want it to get people's attention, but so I'm always like, it took me months before I even started doing it, because I was just overthinking it too much. So,
you can do that. Absolutely.
So I need somebody like Paul.
You do. Well, we all do.
Yeah,
just do it.
Mr. Motivator.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Greg, if you email me your address to send this to, I'll send it off to you.
Okay. All right. That sounds great. I
take
appreciate that.
the picture as well for you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, definitely. Yes,
Yeah.
please do that. Please do that. So I will do that. I think we went maybe almost, I don't remember exactly when we started, but it's been almost an hour maybe.
Yeah,
a little over. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been a good length. And I want to thank you guys again for taking part, and
Mm.
and thank you, you Dave, for emailing me back. And,
You're welcome, Greg. Thank
willing,
you.
Willingness to talk about it, and
Yeah.
give him his due. Definitely needed to do that.
Yeah, thank you, and I appreciate that, and giving me the outlet to actually speak about it, because it really was. I thought this needs saying for me personally, and Michelle's a much a part of a big part of Dad's life, obviously, and I'd like her to be involved in it, and you've given us the opportunity, which I really am grateful for.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's been
Really
nice.
grateful.
And I didn't
Can't
cry.
thank you enough.
I was like, when you started, I was like, oh, don't cry, don't cry.
No,
That's what I didn't want that to happen. So yeah.
No.
Yeah.
But it's a high point in the sense that, in my life, this is the chapter that probably closes it musically. And,
Yeah.
but as I say, let's see where it goes with this song. And it's a good, it's the only jokes. Jokes right now. Woof woof. Yeah. But as I say, I'm going to dig out some of the old material that we've done, and it's some pretty good stuff. And I'll run it past Michelle, and we'll get some stuff on online. I'll put it out on YouTube probably.
Do that.
To keep it going, because it's worth it, and it's something I want.
Right. And again, the most rewarding part to me is getting the feedback, from viewers, or from, people that, post their comments and say, oh, I remember back in the day, I remember so-and-so, or I just found out about this artist, or whatever, that's the thing that really feeds me,
Yeah.
is doing these.
Gives you a good feeling. It makes it worthwhile. Eh? All the
It makes
efforts.
it worthwhile. Yeah.
Yeah. That's brilliant. She's getting bored, I think, now, Greg. I think she's saying time to move on.
You guys, thank you again. And I'll let you know once I get this edited down. I don't think there'll be too much. You didn't have to take a bathroom break, see?
No, I didn't, Greg. It's coming. Believe me.
She said bathroom break, your brain's like, need to go for a wee.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm holding on. Thank you.
I will let you guys go, and I'll let you know once it is ready.
Much appreciated.
Well, I appreciate it too. I
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Michelle and Dave, and you guys have a great rest of the weekend too, okay?
Oh,
Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
All the best.
Take care.
Bye now.